Hello and welcome to another episode of the Duke It Out Wrestling Podcast, where I, Duke, talk about events from the past, present, or future in the world of professional wrestling. Now, AEW Revolution has just ended, and by just ended, I mean I was at a friend's house and I drove back home, and now it is approaching 2 o'clock in the morning. So as you can imagine, I am very, very exhausted, especially after watching a very long wrestling show. But at the very least, since it was a long wrestling show, at least it was a very good wrestling show. AEW Revolution, the first pay-per-view for AEW in 2026, ended up being very successful. Now, with a lot of AEW pay-per-views, they can be hailed as some of the best events of all time. So if there's any bad discussions of this show, I feel like a lot of it can come from a place where people are expecting the best of the best types of shows from AEW, and even a show that is still really good could be deemed bad in just the standards of everyone expecting a perfect pay-per-view. This wasn't a perfect show by any means. There were plenty of things throughout the show that I thought could have been better, but I can't say that I was dissatisfied with the show by any means whatsoever. I had a great time with the show, plenty of matches that are more than memorable and could end up being match of the year candidates by the end of the year. And now I'm going to go through every single match, including the 0 hour, which on the pay-per-view ranking that I will do of this video, I will not be talking about the 0 hour matches. So any opinions that you'd want to see of the 0 hour, you're only going to get them from me in this podcast. And the first match from the 0 hour was Boom and Doom against the Infantry, and I thought this was exactly how I was expecting this match to go down. Some very solid, entertaining fun with an interference spot from Big Justice, and along with Wayne Brady, who I was not expecting to be a part of the match, but that was pretty fun. Shane Taylor threw Wayne Brady over the barricade, then the Rizzler and Big Justice came to his aid, but Shane Taylor just pushed over the Rizzler, and Big Justice hit Shane Taylor with a spear, which could be a bit out of touch with reality, even for pro wrestling standards, but it was innocent, harmless fun, and while I didn't love it, I didn't hate it either. I was entertained by it. It was fine. And then the second match of the 0 hour was for the TBS Championship, Willow Nightingale versus Lena Cross, and I thought this was a really good match, especially for a 0 hour match where not usually all the matches are usually hyped up to be top tier contenders for match of the night. This was a very solid match. Lena Cross worked Willow's shoulder very well, which came into play for the tag team title match. And while I was thinking this was going to be the last match on 0 hour to then lead to the women's tag title match, they did swap orders of how I thought the card was going to be placed, but it ended up, I think, being the right choice. And then the final match of the 0 hour was the Battle Royal for the National Championship, with Ricochet obviously being the defender. And I was predicting that Ricochet was going to win this Battle Royal, mainly from booking with my heart and not my head, because I was really wanting to see Ricochet lose the national title at a Rev Pro event to Michael Oku. But Ricochet did end up losing the National Championship in this Battle Royal to Jack Perry. And Jack Perry was the second guess that I had to win this Battle Royal, and I was guessing if anyone else is going to win this Battle Royal who isn't Ricochet, it was going to be Jack Perry. They did convince me for a second that they might give the title to Ciampa because he was getting a lot of eliminations in that Battle Royal, but overall, I thought it was a decent enough Battle Royal. We got the moment that that most fans were wanting to see, with Jack Perry getting a really great win in front of his hometown, which I thought was really cool, and I did not consider the fact that Revolution was going to be in Jack Perry's hometown. If I had considered that, I might have just said that Jack Perry would have won instead of Ricochet. But I am more than happy with Jack Perry taking the title. It makes plenty of sense with him pinning Ricochet a lot over the past month. So hopefully they actually have something planned for this national title reign, including some very good defenses on the indies. Now, that was the end of the 0 hour, but the pay-per-view didn't end up opening with the Battle Royal still going on, because I think there were at least 3 or 4 other people. I think 3, like Ciampa had just gotten eliminated right when the 0 hour ended, and it cut to the main card. And I thought AEW has been doing that a lot as of late, cutting from a 0 hour match to the main show. It's very fun. It's another way to keep the crowd energized, and technically you can say that the pay-per-view main card did open with Jack Perry becoming the national champion. Now, the actual first match for the main card ended up being FTR versus the Young Bucks, the 5th match from the FTR and the Young Bucks, and a lot of fans have been complaining about that, but they did find ways to have this match differentiate from a lot of their other matches, especially with the fact that within the first 5 minutes, both Dax Harwood and Nick Jackson were bleeding pretty heavily. And while I wasn't a huge fan of that decision, but also at the same time, I get why they chose to have it be a bloodfest, because they wanted to add something new into this match compared to all their other ones. And especially with the fact that FTR attacked the Young Bucks' father, it added more of a personal edge to the feud. So part of me does get it, but also I kind of wish they maybe waited a little bit longer to really get into the bloody carnage. But the match itself was still really, really great. I don't think it was the best FTR Young Bucks match that I was hoping for in my predictions video, but it was still a hell of an opening match. Some awesome sequences, incredible near falls, and some awesome moments with Stokely Hathaway, whether it was the camera cutting to him reacting to a certain spot, or Nick Jackson, I believe, doing the suicide dive on him when he was still on the wheelchair. I thought that was absolutely hilarious. And FTR did end up getting the win. I think what maybe harmed this from being my favorite match from FTR and the Young Bucks is because of the nature of it being a little bit predictable that FTR was going to take it, especially with the fact that Cope and Christian ended up returning after the match was over, and I was expecting that. So maybe it was just the predictability of it that was making me have less tensity for the match itself, but I still thought it was one hell of an opening match, and could have been a standing for match of the night on most given nights. But with a show like Revolution, there were a lot of other great matches that we needed to get to. But it was still a really good match. I've seen some other people really highly praise this match and maybe think it's the best match that they've had. And if you do think that, that's incredible. And I'm really glad that you think that way. I was hoping that I'd get to feel the same way. And while I still think it's a fantastic match, it's still not the best FTR Young Bucks match. And that could sound like a lot more of a critique, but they're just set at a very high standard, and that's not necessarily their fault for being two of the greatest tag teams of all time. And I'm going to check to make sure that I had the card number correctly, but the second match on the main card was Timeless Toni Storm versus Marina Shafir, with everyone banned from ringside. This match, I had some decent anticipation for. I wasn't exactly sure how everything was going to go down, and I was really wondering if they were actually going to stick with everyone being banned from ringside, and they actually did stick to that rule, which I thought was a good idea. And Timeless Toni Storm ended up getting the win here, which I thought was a bit of a shock, because I was thinking that you've been kind of building up Marina Shafir a lot over this past year with her work in the Death Riders, so I thought her getting a big win on pay-per-view was the next best step. But then Toni Storm got the win, and I'm like, interesting. I wonder why they really decided to pull the trigger on that, because I was thinking Marina needed the win more. But then while Toni Storm was celebrating on the ramp, Ronda Rousey ended up walking to the ring, had a face-off with Toni Storm, and it seems like Ronda Rousey might be signing with All Elite Wrestling, or at the very least, we'll be having a program with Toni Storm at the very least. Or maybe they'll do a tag team match with Ronda and Marina Shafir against Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa. That's probably where this is going to lead to. And the crowd did not seem too happy about it. There weren't heavy boos, but there weren't heavy cheers either. It seemed like the crowd just were like, oh, okay, Ronda Rousey's here. And I was kind of reacting in the same way. I was kind of like, wait, what? No. Really? Really? Okay, because I do not know how I feel about this. At first I was like, why? Because Ronda Rousey has a lot of history with professional wrestling, and not a lot of it is good. Especially that she has seemed to shit on the business a few times, while on other occasions she has spoken very highly of the business, and especially had spoken highly of AEW over this past year, because she was really appreciative with Jon Moxley's support for Marina Shafir. So that good relationship probably was a big reason why this ended up happening. But I think this is just, I guess, a decent way to get more eyes onto AEW. But I'm not going to say that I am very excited about Ronda Rousey appearing in AEW. I don't necessarily despise it either. I'm just emotionless on it. I'm just like, okay. all right. I wouldn't have been my choice, but I guess we're going to stick with this. So we'll see what the future actually holds with Ronda Rousey in AEW. And I will definitely give my opinion more on that as the future goes on. But for now, I basically am pretty emotionless about this debut. I was shocked, did not see it coming, but it wasn't really a good surprise. Then next after that was for the Continental Championship, Jon Moxley versus Konosuke Takeshita with no time limit. I was very curious on how this match was going to go down. I have really liked the past couple matches that Moxley and Takeshita have had, but in some big pay-per-view matches, I could either love a Moxley match or be kind of worn out with a Moxley match. And luckily with this one, I was enticed practically the whole way through. There were some fantastic back and forth sequences. One in particular, I remember with Moxley doing an awesome drop kick and then Takeshita immediately going back to the knee. I thought that was such an incredible spot. Moxley did incredible selling. Takeshita had some great motivation to get the crowd hyped up. And it is really weird with the, like, in a kayfabe sense with this match, since both Konosuke Takeshita and Jon Moxley are in a heel faction, but they're both kind of babyface. So it's really just up to the audience on who they wanted to root for. And it seemed like most of the crowd was leaning toward Takeshita for this match, which honestly, yeah, I get it. And I thought the back and forth chemistry was really, really good. In the beginning, the grappling, I was like, okay, I'm into it, but I hope this doesn't last too long. But they kept up the pace really well. And with the no time limit, I thought the match was honestly going to go on a little bit longer, but it honestly kept at a really, really good length. And I think it especially stayed at that length with how long a certain match ended up being later in the night, which I will get into that later. But I thought this was a really, really good match. And it was very intense in the final act. I was really, really wondering how it was actually going to go down, because I was really hoping for Takeshita to win. But then we got the paradigm shift off the top rope. He kicked out, but then Moxley locked in the chokehold, and I knew it was over after that. And I was really bummed out because I was really hoping to get the storyline of Takeshita getting the title and being able to brag to Okada's face like, haha, I have a singles belt and you don't, which I thought would have been really, really funny. But it was a really, really good match. Moxley ended up retaining, and I am very curious as to how long he actually is going to hold on to this belt for, if he's going to lose it before the C2 this year, or he's going to keep it until the C2. But then post-match is something I really want to get into, because while Moxley and the rest of the Death Riders were ready to walk off into the crowd, a video package plays, and it was pretty obvious what it was building up to, seeing an x-ray of someone's neck, and we're like, oh, who just had neck surgery about 6+ months ago? Oh yeah, it is Will Ospreay. And in the video package, it seemed like he was like starting to hulk up, which was very goofy, but really, really fun. And Will Ospreay got a very, very welcome pop back into AEW. And a lot of people were wondering if Will Ospreay was really going to change his moveset after this surgery. And from what he was doing, attacking the Death Riders, it seems like he's not changing his moveset by any means whatsoever, including putting his neck on the line even more. Because when he did a dive outside of the ring to them, it looked like Ospreay was about to hit his head on the apron mid-fall. And I was like, you just came back, Will. Please don't do this to us. But I am so happy to see Will Ospreay back. And it wasn't the only return from this pay-per-view. Obviously, from Cope and Christian earlier, and there's even more to get into later on. Then the next match was for the Women's Tag Team Championships, the Babes of Wrath, Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale against Megan Bayne and Lena Cross. This was a pretty fun match for what it was. It did not get a lot of time, but they had a reason for it. They were really working on Willow's injured shoulder and really doing a lot of really cool dominant teamwork to make sure that Megan Bayne and Lena Cross could get an easier win over the Babes of Wrath than they usually could. It made a lot of sense with Willow's injury. She sold it very well, and I was really shocked that Willow got the pin, but with the shoulder injury stuff, it did make a lot more sense than for Harley Cameron to get pinned, just so she doesn't look weaker. And I thought it was fine for what it was. It could be deemed as the weakest match of the night simply only because it was a 5-minute match, but they all worked it really, really well. And after that, we had Swerve Strickland versus Brody King. I was very excited for this match. I thought Swerve's entrance tributing Candyman was really cool. And then Brody King's entrance was a lot of fun as well, with the LA crowd doing a lot of fuck ice chants, which I was wondering if the crowd was actually going to do it. And for a second, I'm like, are they good? Are they muting the crowd for this? And then I was hearing the fuck ice chants. So I'm like, okay, never mind. They're not muting it. Okay, good. And then I was genuinely very surprised with this match. I was expecting a good match, but I think I did love this match a little bit more than some other people have. It's gotten some good reception online and stuff, but some people have not been considering it one of the best matches of the night. But honest to God, this was one of my favorite matches from the entire card. It wasn't super long. It was a good 15 minutes, but it had everything that it needed to. It had some very brutal spots in a violent way that was very different from what I was expecting. Since this pay-per-view had a lot of matches where people were bleeding, I'm glad that they decided to not go that way here and have the violence be more so from spots on the apron or ripping up the padding on the floor and having some spots on the floor. I thought that was really creative and very well done. And Swerve Strickland had some of the best house calls that I've ever seen consistently in this match. Almost any house call looked like it was a direct shot to Brody King's head or mouth, and it was very brutal looking, and it was awesome. And Brody King, even though he didn't get the win in this match, which a lot of fans were expecting, he did get a lot of great moments to show off his dominance. And Swerve made sure to sell the fear he had of Brody very well. And Brody did get some good moments to kick out of some of Swerve's big moves and to make him look as dominant as he could before he eventually did get the win. I thought this was a very, very good match. Like I mentioned, I think I might have liked this a little bit more than some people did. And then we got even more goodness post-match because Kenny Omega did end up coming out to both attack Swerve Strickland and to prevent Brody King from getting attacked even more because Prince Nana brought out a cinder block and it seemed like Swerve was about to stomp Brody's head through a cinder block. So thank God Kenny left Capcom a little early to make the save. And I'm very excited to see how they continue the feud between Swerve and Kenny Omega because their Dynamite match is one of the best matches of the entire year. And the next match was Tekla versus Chris Statlander in a 2 out of 3 falls match for the AEW Women's World Championship. I was thinking that the progression of who was going to get the first, second, or third fall, it went a little differently than I expected. And honestly, it still went in a really, really great way. The first fall was very thoroughly entertaining. And then the second fall I thought was the best chunk of the match for me. And then the third fall was very fun, but was very relied in its interference spots and shenanigans, which wasn't as good as the first 2 falls of the match, but still very freaking great all the way around. Tekla definitely gives her best singles performance in AEW so far. If there were any doubters for Tekla, if she should be AEW Women's Champion, she proved all those haters wrong tonight. She had some great counters, great charisma, and awesome counters. And Chris Statlander had some great build-up, some great drawing to the crowd, and she sold a lot of Tekla's moves really well. And I think what suffered with the third fall was that once it got to the sudden death, it was seeming a bit predictable that Tekla was going to retain the title, but at the same time it made sense because it would have been pointless to put the title on Tekla if she was then going to lose it a few weeks later at Revolution. And I didn't hear anything about this until now, but I guess there have been some rumors about Chris Statlander's contract status in AEW, and a lot of people were thinking that she might be leaving soon, but I don't think that's the case. I feel like if it was more of a valid report, I would have seen it from places like Fightful. I haven't seen reports of anything like that yet. But that could end up being the case. It would be a bummer, but at the same time, it could make sense. And Statlander has won practically every title that you can in AEW beyond the women's tag team titles. So I guess it would sort of make sense, but I would love to see Stat continue more in AEW. And next up, we have the Trios match for the Trios Championships. The Don Callis family members being Kazuchika Okada, Kyle Fletcher, and Mark Davis against the team of Mystico and Jet Speed. this was a really fun trios match. We got some great work from some of the best wrestlers that AEW has to offer. Kyle Fletcher giving some really great spots in here, and Mystico giving some really great moments from the crowd, and Mystico especially had the moment to shine from this match, because honest to God, this is one of the most shocking results of the entire pay-per-view. I was really not expecting the Don Callis family to be rid of the trios titles that quickly after beating Jet Speed Rodeo, but here we are. And I thought it was a really great moment, and I thought Mystico and Jet Speed did really great work together as a team, and I thought it was really cool that Kevin Knight and Speedball also wore masks for the match, even though I think Kyle Fletcher rubbed one of the masks on his crotch during the match, and then once the match was over, both Kevin Knight and Speedball put their masks back on. Did you guys remember that Kyle Fletcher wiped his crotch on him? And if you didn't know, I wish I could see the footage backstage when they found out. But I was really shocked to see Mystico and Jet Speed get the trios titles. And it was really cool that we then got the moment of on the Titantron saying that Mystico is officially All Elite, which was really, really cool. His comeback story in pro wrestling after his release in WWE is truly inspiring, and now he is a trios champion in both CMLL and AEW, which is a really cool fact. Then after that was my most anticipated match of the night, Andrade El Idolo versus Bandito. I was expecting this to be my match of the night, and while there are a couple others that are really trying to really fight for that spot, and I really haven't made up my mind yet, this could easily be my contender for match of the night. Their chemistry was off the charts here. We get a mix of the amazing flippy pro wrestling that we're used to seeing from them, while also getting some fantastic character work, especially from Andrade, ripping off the pants, and then Bandito doing the same thing, and then him taking a selfie with a woman in the crowd was a ton of fun, and the moves by the end were fucking astounding, including the near falls. Whether it was Andrade kicking out of the 21 plex or his counter to it, then going for the hammerlock DDT on the top rope, which was awesome. And could be my favorite spot of the match was when Bandito was able to do the 21 plex from the bottom rope. It looked so freaking sick. And Andrade's counters with the spinning elbow, they always looked extremely devastating. And Andrade getting the win was the right call here. And I do wonder if Don Callis is going to want Andrade to go after the Ring of Honor Championship now, because at this point, now that Okada, Fletcher, and Davis lost the trios titles, the only champion left in the Don Callis family is Kyle Fletcher with the TNT title. So Don Callis could be hungry for more belts to represent the family. So I could see Andrade taking the Ring of Honor title later this year. But I wasn't necessarily sure if that was something Andrade would want to do, but if he does, that would be pretty freaking awesome. But overall, yeah, this probably will stand as my favorite match of the night. I absolutely loved the chemistry between these two. But that opinion could change later on. We'll see in my pay-per-view ranking video. And the second to last match on the card was a Tornado Trios match with the team of Darby Allin, Orange Cassidy, and Roderick Strong against the Dogs, the team of David Finlay, Clark Connors, and Gabe Kidd. I thought this was a pretty entertaining match. It was a lot of fun. We of course got a very scary spot with Darby Allin, with Clark Connors spearing him on the outside of the ring, and it looked both horrible for Darby, and I was scared that Clark Connors was about to land right on the top of his head. It looked like they were both okay, though, so we're fine. And then we got some more craziness with Darby Allin and Gabe Kidd on the outside of the ring, where Darby jumped his skateboard. It looked like right on the top of Gabe Kidd's neck. I really hope Gabe is okay after that. And then the ending occurred, which really shocked me. And I think this was the most potentially wrong booking decision of the night, with Darby, Roddy, and Orange Cassidy getting the win. And I'm not saying I don't think this is wrong because I dislike any of the wrestlers. I love Darby Allin, love Roderick Strong, and love Orange Cassidy. But at the same time, I don't think they needed this win. The dogs have just started on AEW television. This is David Finlay's first AEW pay-per-view match. I think they really should have gotten the spotlight win here. While this isn't obviously a redeemable moment, I think that having this kind of pay-per-view debut for a more casual viewer could just have them look at the dogs as not a threat, which they should be looked at as a threat. So I don't think that was the right decision. They could easily come back from it, but I feel like you should have just given them their first win. You should have given their first pay-per-view match. Oh, they should have let them win their first pay-per-view match. Sorry, it is late in the evening and I am clearly exhausted. But anyway, I will get to the main event. MJF versus Hangman Page in a Texas death match for the AEW title. If Hangman lost, he could never challenge for the world title again. This was a Texas death match in All Elite Wrestling. You got almost any violent spot that you would guess from a Texas death match in AEW, whether you would want to see the spot or not. I thought but before I get into anything in the match, what might be my favorite part about this main event was the entrances. Hangman Page's entrance was absolutely incredible, from the lighting and the horns at the top of the ramp. I thought that was awesome. And MJF's troll entrance was absolutely hilarious. Him doing a monologue in the cowboy accent, and then him walking up to Hangman's grave and pissing on it. A complete troll. And then walking out in cowboy gear for his entrance. That was also, in a way, tributing Terry Funk, which I thought was a really nice tribute. And then we get to the actual match itself, and yeah, a lot of violent spots here, whether it was broken glass and MJF being dragged across it, Hangman stapling a happy birthday card onto MJF because it was his 30th birthday. And I was about to mention another staple gun spot, or them trying to electrocute themselves, or my least favorite spot in the match, which was the skewers. We have not seen a skewer spot since All In 2023 or All In 2024, where Penta did it to Jon Moxley, and it was a very nasty spot. And what I will say here is, I thought this was a good main event. It was a good main event. A lot of the spots made me a bit too squeamish, but I was expecting that. But I think the biggest flaw from this Texas death match was the length. I think the total run time for the match ended up being a little bit more than 45 minutes. And with such a long pay-per-view that Revolution already was, I think it made the longevity of this match be even more felt. I think we could have had at least a solid 10 to 15 minutes taken away from the match, especially with a lot of people guessing the outcome of what was going to happen, which was Hangman losing and him not being able to compete for the title again. It was orchestrated in a fantastic way with poetry in motion, with MJF hanging Hangman by the chain off the apron and waiting until he was knocked out. And there were some other really good spots as well, which I forgot to mention. I really loved, while I didn't love the syringe spot, it was gross looking, but I really thought it was cool how it was mirroring the lights out steel cage match that Hangman had with Swerve Strickland at All Out, with MJF using the syringe and then seemed like he was about to hit Hangman in the head with a chair, just like Hangman did to Swerve at All Out. I thought that was a really nice touch. And as I mentioned, I did really like this main event. I don't think it's anywhere near one of the best main events in AEW pay-per-view history. And it might be my least favorite Texas death match from an AEW pay-per-view. But it still is a really, really good match. And MJF getting the win was the right result, even though I'm not the biggest fan of the booking of having Hangman defend his ability to challenge for the title. Unless they really do some smart moves, like I was fantasy booking in my prediction video, if Hangman turns heel, teams up with Swerve, and goes back on his word, I think that would be insanely good television. But we will have to wait and see. And as what I thought of Revolution as a show itself, I thought it was a fantastic show. It may not be the best AEW Revolution of all time, but that is a lot. That is a big competition with a lot of the other great Revolutions that there have been. And this is still a very, very good show and will probably be regarded as one of AEW's best through and through pay-per-views of the year, whether it was the stacked list of matches or the many returns of Cope and Christian, Kenny Omega, and Will Ospreay, and even the debut of Ronda Rousey, which even if you like it or don't, it's going to get people talking. That was my podcast on AEW Revolution 2026, and be expecting a pay-per-view ranking of the show within the next few days. Thank you so much for listening, and please make sure to like this podcast, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, and duke out your Revolution opinions in the comments below.